Trying to decide whether that new game is worth your $60? Or maybe you're just wondering if an old game is worth your time. Well, you came to the right place. This is the only podcast that tries to answer the question,
should I buy it though?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Should I Buy It Though? I'm Giancarlo Herrera.
It's me, Nico. Wahoo!
Damn, you took my joke, bro.
Oh my god.
It's me, TJ.
I'm still Amanda Facosta.
Wow, no spirit.
Oh my goodness. Move on.
Wahoo! It's a me, Nick Palazzo. Wow.
Damn,
That was good.
Oh, that's
was
the
good.
best one.
All right, watch this. Watch this. Wow!
All right, thank you all for listening.
I wish they could see that.
Yeah, he was literally shaking. It's like when Tom Kenny puts his hand on his throat to do the SpongeBob laugh, but it was his whole body.
I wanted to emulate what it's like to actually fall into a ravine.
And this week we are reviewing Paper Mario Origami King. For context, I guess we'll say who played it, to what extent. I played it, I finished it. Yeah.
I played it and I'm still playing it. Yep.
I have not played it, but I will play it eventually.
But you bought it.
I did buy it. I own
You
it.
can review the box art.
I watched an hour on YouTube, and then I'm going to mooch the rest of it off of Amanda when she's done. Wahoo!
And Nick thinks that you should not buy Paper Mario Origami King.
You do what you want. It's not for me. This is a kid's game.
Whoa.
All right.
Whoa.
Damn.
Oh, the fighting words.
We opened Tsushima with Amanda's hot take, and we opened Paper Mario with Nick's hot take.
I also know nothing about any of them Paper Marios at all. So
All right. So with that invalidated opinion,
I know nothing,
I guess
but
we can
don't buy
start.
it.
Okay, so let's get started. And one of the first things, I guess for background, is our relationship to Paper Mario. Because Nintendo games, people tend to form long-running histories with them, and it kind of colors your opinion. No pun intended. I know for me, I played one of the Paper Marios on GameCube when I was very young. I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I made it very far in the game. But I've always liked the art style of Paper Mario.
So I got it for GameCube. Originally, it was just because it seemed cool. It was a Mario game to play. I had a lot of fun with it. My mom bonded to it more than I did. I love the game. I love the series. But she really loves it to the point where I've purchased every Paper Mario game for her in existence, as well as the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. And one of them, they did a crossover together. And it's cool. It's a fun little series.
Yeah.
I played, I believe, Super Paper Mario, and I had it for the Wii, and I was very bad at it. I wasn't good at it, but that's okay because my sister was, and I would watch her play it, and now I'm good at it, so no need to worry, guys. I figured it out.
Okay, well, one of the first things to talk about with Paper Mario is its freaking paperness, because, that's a big deal with it. And I just want to open with saying that, the game is gorgeous, especially, for being a Switch game. I think it's beautiful. I love all of the character designs, the worlds. They're always super creative, Nintendo. They have their gimmicks, they have Yoshi's Woolly World or whatever, stuff like that, where they kind of run with a gimmick about it being arts and craft supplies or something like that. But I think it's executed really well here visually. I think the game looks fabulous. I loved all of the little details in the world, stuff like some of the things you do in the game are collectathons of toads who have been folded, because this is origami themed, who have been folded into different things, and so sometimes they're bugs on trees, or they're crumpled up behind some trash or something like that. And I just loved seeing all the creative ways that they made use of the visual theme. How'd you guys like it?
I loved it. It was definitely beautiful. It was very colorful, magical looking. Yeah, man.
The environments had variety too. You go through a couple of different regions in this game. It's very wide, and each region has kind of its own gimmick in terms of gameplay. You get vehicles in this game, which I thought was really cool. And yeah, just like when you enter certain areas, there's an area called like the Autumn Mountain or Sweet Paper Valley. There's an ocean area. Like all of it has its own style. And when you enter it and you enter that new color palette for the first time, every single time I wanted to stop. I took some screenshots and stuff like that because I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, no, it definitely like when you say the world, it feels like they really immerse you in this world, and it feels endless, but like in a really good way, like I'm normally not the kind of person who feels the need to like go through everything and find every collectible and whatever, but the only reason I did that towards the beginning, but then I'm like, I really need to like get with it or else I won't have this game finished for the review.
Yeah.
And I still didn't have it finished for the review. But still, like I felt like Benetatos playing Odyssey.
Yeah.
You remember? Yeah, because
I did too.
Yeah, exactly. Because I tried to find everything, and it's literally like it's impossible. There are hidden blocks everywhere where you don't expect it, and then you have all these treasure chests scattered throughout, and it's awesome. It's awesome, and I can't wait to like go back and actually try and 100% it, which I don't think I'll accomplish, but I will definitely try. So
yeah, I thought it was great the amount of collectibles and stuff that were in the world, which like a lot of times are meaningless, and in this game I guess they are meaningless as far as like, it's nothing significant to like the narrative or anything like that, but they were always fun to find because they were so creative. And so
yeah.
I just wanted to see what they did with every single one of them. I did not 100% everything because it would have been hard to get it done in time and to get any sort of meaningful gameplay in Tsushima. But in most areas, there were quite a few areas that I did 100%. And then all of the other areas, I think I never dipped below maybe 75% completion on like all the collecting stuff. I was usually somewhere in like the 80-ish range. So yeah, I tried to take my time as much as I could in this world. It was a lot of fun. On that front, one of the things that I think the game does interestingly, which not a lot of Nintendo games do very often, is it has an achievement system. You can check out your map and you can see like your progress with all of the different things, and I thought that was a nice little addition. Like when you finish finding all the toads, it would give you a pop-up and say 100% of like toads found and stuff like that. And I thought it was nice to have that in game, just to like let you know that you finished it, and to I guess incentivize, when you finish one of maybe like the easier ones, like closing up all the holes, then you would be like, oh, that's right, wait, what am I missing? And it would like prompt you to go back and check and see, maybe if you wanted to go back to an area and see if you missed any toads or anything like that. Did you care for the achievement system at all?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It took me a second to realize, to like notice it actually whenever it would pop and be like 100%. And then once I did, I was like, oh crud, have I not been 100%ing like every other world? And then when I checked, over through the map and everything, it was like, like 67%. And I audibly would gasp and just like, I don't know, I'd be like, well, I have to go back, but then I'm like, but then there's the main mission, Amanda, what are you gonna do? And it's just, I don't know, that made me, I don't know, I guess that means I just actually really enjoyed playing the game, so that's good.
The good thing is the world it operates on like the hub system basically, so there's a main area where that then connects to each of the areas once you've unlocked them, so you can go back and it's easy to go back and revisit stuff. What I will say is that this game basically pulls a Breath of the Wild, where when the game is over, it's over. Like it's not like you can go back and play in like the finished world. It just reloads a save before the final encounter, and you just have to like backtrack out of the final area and go back and do whatever you wanted. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, once you complete it, like the story's over, the game is over. You can only reload an earlier save, which is at the final save block. So it's not a terrible way to do it, but it makes sense. It's not a terrible way
to do it, but also like, dang.
I mean, it makes sense as to why certain things wouldn't work. Like, for example, without like spoiling anything in this game, but like in Breath of the Wild, you can't really continue playing in a saved world because since Ganon is destroyed, the monsters are gone, there would be nothing to do. So it's kind of one of those things where certain things wouldn't exist anymore. So it wouldn't really make sense for you to continue playing. So I understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, tone in this game. I was shocked at how eerie the game felt at the beginning.
It really, it throws you for a loop because it's like the last thing you're expecting.
Yeah, it's delightfully eerie, and then the one thing that kind of is not like a huge letdown, but I was kind of like, I wish, is just that there's always immediately a joke after like the really dark stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's a joke to be like, haha, it's a kid game, JK, everyone's fine. I would love for them to just be like, no, the world is dark, and that's it. Just for you to be like, Jesus Christ, this is Mario. What are you doing? Like,
here's the thing is, like, I still felt that way, even with the jokes. Because that's also, I don't know, maybe that just says something about me, because I do cope with humor. So I don't know. But I liked it.
No, but there's some real screwed up things in this game. Like, when you first see them, there are different enemies that do different creative things relating to paper. And one of them does something to a bunch of toads. And like when you see it the first time, you're like, oh, that's weird. And then when you realize like what it's done to everyone and you interact with some of them, you're like, oh my God, this is horrifying. This is like serial killer stuff.
That's kind of like what Paper Mario is known for, too. I've always wanted to get into the series because of how dark it is. Like in Thousand Year Door, I know the first thing you see is there's a noose in the center of the town. It's like, what the fuck? This is a Mario game.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate how dark that these games are. I've never played one, but I really want to get into them because of that different tone from a normal Mario game.
I'd totally love to see what you think about this one. Because, yeah, it almost discredits itself with humor. Because I can deal with, like, a joke, but every now and then it'll be a joke that kind of is like, ha, this happened, but they're actually fine. You know? Not always. There are some places where it throws a punch and it lets it sit there. And that's something about the game that also surprised me was there are a surprising amount of emotional moments in this game.
Oh, yeah.
For being a Paper Mario game, I was like, there are tragic events in this game. Like, to the point where I almost cried. Like, I was like, oh my God, how are you going to do that?
I did cry. I don't even know. Sometimes I like to play games with, like, my own music in the background. And I don't know, I've been listening to, like, my strings playlist. So it's classical music, but it has, like, that, you know, kind of sad tone to it. And you know the moment that happens. Whatever.
Yes.
You know that moment. But the song that was playing, John, you know the song. It was the song.
I do know the song. I went back and I listened to it on YouTube like 5 times.
Yeah. Well, the song that I had playing was the song that we used from Eurydice.
Oh!
Yeah. So it was a really... you should link that song in the description.
Oh, man.
We're going to link that song. It's called Cold by George Mendez. And it is it's beautiful, but it is just... It just makes you feel so hollow.
Yeah, no, the game is like, has surprisingly tragic moments. Like, the story is, I was expecting something goofy and whatever, and it is for a lot of it, but when it does try to make a point, it's effective. It sits there. Like, one of the notes I made was casual, cheery murder. Because it is very funny that, like, so you're fighting origami creations for a lot of the game, and one of the draws of this game, and I think it's safe to talk about this without it really being a spoiler, because you can see it wherever, is you get some people who, like, are traditionally enemies in Mario games as either allies or just, like, neutral characters, where they're just hanging out, because the enemies in this game are the origami. And so, like, when you first get introduced to an origami and, like, you have to fight it, your partner during the tutorial section basically says, she's like, okay, well, he used to be this, but now he's one of the origami dudes, so you just have to kill him, because, like, yeah, you can't save them once they're origami, so just murder him, go, smash his face in. And then you kill him, and there's, like, a big high-five moment. It's like, yeah, you did it. And I'm like, you just told me to end this dude's life. He used to be, like, a Goomba or whatever, and now he's dead.
Wahoo!
Yeah. Woohoo! Which is made like doubly weird by the fact that like you talk to a lot of your enemies, and so they're like, Mario, what are you doing here? And they're like, oh no, you're right. Those origami freaks. Like, yeah, like, I can hang out with you for right now. You seen Bowser around? Where's Bowser? Like, and you're buddying with these dudes, and not to get too specific, but Amanda, I just want to say 2 words to you and see if you have anything to say about it. Un café.
Dude, what's up with that?
It is my favorite thing in the game.
A coffee?
By far. Yes.
Un café. It's literally, so can we say it? Can we say this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
There
okay,
are.
so there's literally coffee bars like scattered throughout, but you always gotta like.
It's like a hidden collectible type thing.
Yeah.
Because the first time you find the coffee thing, it's like, oh, you could drink a coffee and it makes you faster for like 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought it was going to be for the rest of the game, but it's not. Because you buy a coffee, and then, like, you drink the coffee, I guess it heals you or whatever, but really, the reason you buy the coffee is because there are these really hilarious freaking cutscenes in every single one of the coffee bars. And so, like, you go in, and usually it's, like, enemies. It's, like, a Goomba and a Balloomba and a whatever, like, just hanging out there having a coffee, and you go up, and they're like, oh, what's he doing here? And you pay for your coffee, and you drink it. And then something wild always happens. I'm not going to say what, because, like, it's a delightful thing that I want you guys to experience on your own, but it's different in each place. And it is just... It's my favorite section of the game. Like, I want, like, a Paper Mario barista simulator game now.
It's so sweet. It's just another little thing that just really does add to this entire story in the whole world, and I really do love it.
And that, to me, is the greatest strength of the game overall, is the environment and the interactivity of stuff there. It's very easy to go into loot-a-thons in a lot of games and be like, I need to explore every single corner because I don't want to miss anything. And, like, definitely in this game, like, there's an absurd amount to do, and you can definitely wear yourself out if you want to, like, if you're having a hard time finding every single toad. But if you're just exploring, like, a lot of times when you're on the path, like, I would try to go the opposite way to explore, and the game would be like, no, wait, don't we have to go do this first? Like, it literally wouldn't let me go the other way. And I would think that would be frustrating, but I actually kind of liked it because I was like, okay, you know what? Let's follow the path. I'll explore every inch of the path. And naturally, it would take you through the whole map. So I never felt like I was missing anything. It was just explore thoroughly in the areas it wants you to be in when you're there. So I felt like I was getting, you know, a full fleshed out experience of everything. But every corner of the world had something in it. Like, again, like the little toads or the coffee shops or different merchants. And when you rescued certain toads, then those toads would end up being the merchants that you could buy upgrades from and stuff like that. So it was just nice that the whole world had stuff to interact with. And they were so charming that to me was the game. I just wanted to interact with the land. I mean,
Yeah.
There were other stuff, and the actual main quest has some really cool moments. But as far as the bulk of the time I spent in it, in between boss fights and everything, it was just me wanting to interact with all the little stuff that was hanging out.
I agree. And speaking of like the toads, I there are a lot of them, right? There are a lot of toads, but every now and then I'm like, okay, let me go talk to some toads. So I'd go and talk to some toads, and some of the lines that these toads have, there was one that really stuck with me, because I just kept laughing, and I wrote it down, and all it is, well, no, there's two. One of them I talked to, and all they said was, I have amnesia, and ran away, and I was like, brilliant, love it, I'm on board. And then another one was like, it had like an angry face on it, because I guess I saved it from like a tree or something, I don't remember. And but it pops up and it looks at me and it's like, I felt like a flower but looked like a weed, story of my life, and it ran away.
Did you go back and talk to it afterwards?
I don't know. I don't think so. Probably not.
There's a couple of those, and one of them was like, he does the thing about the flower, and then he's like, I thought I was about to bloom. And then when you talk to it later, after you've like unfolded it, he just goes, well, I'm not gonna bloom now.
I love it. It's stupid. It's silly, but it's cute.
It's stupid humor, but it's delightful.
Once you really get immersed in the world, you can't help but really enjoy all of it.
It's me, the announcement guy. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to our review of Paper Mario Origami King. Now, I just wanted to make a few quick announcements. First and foremost, we want to give a very special thank you to all of our founding parents who helped make our launch Indiegogo such a big success. This includes Adriana Alarcon, Juan Zorrilla, Will Williams, Ann Baird, Giovanni Zorrilla, Andrea Jimenez Neste, Claudia Acosta, Marcy A., Jerry Benetatos, Katrina Scott, Carolina Riverol, Alejandra Alarcon, Alexia Wild, Giovanni Neste, Daniel Utzet, and Zenobia Ash. Thank you all so much, it really means the world to us. Next, if you're listening to this and you like what we're doing here at Should I Buy, please consider going to check out our other podcast, Dungeons and Drimbus. It's an actual play podcast that's serialized into episodes, and we just started our first full season, but there are also 2 other mini campaigns up for you to listen to. There's drama, comedy, and everything in between, so if you like what we're doing here, we think you'll like what we're doing over there too. And last, if you're wondering how you can support the show, you can always go check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/shouldIbuy, or go to whimsicproductions.com, which can link you through to just about anything you want to see, or leave us a review in the podcast app of your choice. Writing a little something about what you like about the show will really go a long way towards getting the show in front of more people. Again, thank you so much to all of our founding parents for the support, and thanks to all of you who are listening. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Which brings me to the core of the actual gameplay. The combat system.
Uh-oh.
No, that was just...
Most of this game is combat. Amanda, I'm curious, how did you feel about the combat?
All right, so I actually have 4 points written here.
Okay.
I have several points, but for combat, initially I had I can vibe with this. Got it, cool. And then we battle a little bit, we do the thing, and then I'm like, all right, it's a little boring at the moment, but it's whatever. And then I'm like, okay, it's getting a little more difficult, but cool. It's kind of feels like I'm doing like math problems or something, but okay. And then we end it with just like, okay, I take everything I said back. I'm sorry for offending you. I apologize greatly. And this is it's a lot. It's she's hefty, dude. Like they're essentially, the battles are like, they're basically puzzles. Right?
Yes.
They're basically puzzles. And I mean, I didn't hate that at first. I don't hate the fact that they're puzzles. I think one of my biggest issues with any Mario game is that once you defeat, some random enemies, just roaming around, and you're like, cool, I did this, they're all dead, I'm free to live my life, whatever, and you leave, and then eventually like, oh, I have to go back, so you go back, but then they're all alive again, and I'm like,
yep.
I could easily, when I battle them, do I also win coins and stuff like that? Yes, sure. But also, I don't want to fight you again. So, and I mean, to be fair, some enemies you actually, like, you don't have to fight again. You could just, like, if you land a good hit, you're good, like, it's done. But sometimes, like, they'll just pop up and they'll sneak up on you, or they'll jump on you or whatever, and you're like, okay, now I have to fight you, I suppose. Or you could flee, but sometimes fleeing doesn't work, and then you fall on your face, and then you take a lot of damage, and you're like, well, dang it, So that's one of my least favorite things about any Mario game, but yes.
So, to talk about combat, I think we need to explain what we're talking about. So,
Fair.
For those of you listening, to discuss combat, I think we can break it into 3 basic sections. There are environmental fights, there are regular combat fights, and then there are boss fights. So, the bulk of the game is regular combat, or what I'm calling regular combat, I guess. What this consists of is you will run into an enemy, or the enemy will run into you, and it brings you into a section with rings, and the rings can rotate round-wise, or you can rotate all of the layers like through vertically. And your goal is to align all of the enemies either into a line or into squares. Because the 2 weapons that you have throughout the game, you get different variations, but it's always the same 2 weapons. You have your boots and you have your hammer. And so they have different effects for different purposes, whatever, but essentially the boots let you bounce on enemies in a line. The hammer lets you do damage within a 4-block radius. So it's a whole puzzle mechanic, and it's timed, and there are different add-ons you get that give you more time, more health, more whatever, but that is the bulk of the regular combat system.
You can't fight anyone until you line up the rings?
You can, but the thing is you're going to take damage because you, based on how many enemies there are and how you're supposed to line them up, you get a certain amount of moves. So, if you don't line them up correctly, for example, and they're spread out across the board, because the boots attack in a straight line and the hammer attacks in one radius, if you don't line them up and you leave them as is, let's say you hit 2 enemies, then there could be, 4 or 5 other enemies that are about to do damage to you, but that you haven't touched. So the game is like trying to line them up in the most efficient way so that each of your moves does damage so that by the end of your round, you've either killed or at least hurt all of the enemies before they come and hurt you. Because it's a turn-based combat system. The puzzles are fine. And the puzzles, I would say, get decently challenging. And I think it's actually quite interesting. I like the mental challenge of the puzzles.
You would.
The problem comes when that is how you fight every single enemy. And so if you run into one Goomba in the overworld, when you enter the battle arena, because it's its own separate thing, it is then, 7 enemies that you need to line up and get whatever, which makes sense because that's the way it's structured. The problem is that once you figure out the system, with the exception of when when you get a particularly hard lineup, which even then, one of the cool things the game does is that toads that you rescue in the overworld are present in the arena battle. So they're cheering for you. They're saying hints. They're like, use this, use whatever. And you can pay them a certain amount of money, and they'll all, depending on how much money you throw out, they'll rush the board, and they'll do a little bit of damage to some of the enemies. They'll help you line them up just a little bit to make it a little easier for particularly tough ones. That's cool, and it's a great incentive for, collecting as many toads as you can, because I loved having my army of toads just, watching me and cheering me on. That's wonderful. The problem then comes when, again, it's every single fight. So if I'm going to fight 7 enemies in a little section to get to a door, that is 7 arena fights that I have to load into. And there's not long loading times or anything, but it's just the disconnect makes it tiresome. And so at first it's fun, and then I was like, oh man. And then they introduced new enemies once I finished the kind of tutorial section. And that assuaged my problem for a little bit, because I was like, I had just been fighting Goombas for forever. And I was like, okay, now we got Koopa Troopas. And they fly, so they're different. The thing is that, once you understand everyone's gimmick, the fights are all exactly the same. Some enemies, you need your special iron boots because they're spiky, so if you step on them, you're going to hurt yourself. So you need your iron boots to do damage to them. Some enemies fly, so you can't use your hammer. Stuff like that. But, again, they're all essentially the same. The only one that's different is Koopa Troopas when they're still in the shell. If you line them up in the front of a line, you can hit the first one and he'll kill all the enemies behind him. And I thought that was awesome. And so at that point, I got stoked for the combat again, because I was like, cool, I can't wait to see what they do with the other enemies they're going to introduce. But honestly, those are the only enemies that have a unique effect on the board. Everyone else, it's it affects how you have to engage with them, but you can't use the enemies to affect other enemies, which would have kept the combat interesting and been okay, what's the most optimal way to line this up to get the best outcome? Really, most of the time, it's as long as they're in the line and as long as they're in a square, you're good to go. And that gets pretty boring. Thankfully, the game, now we're going to talk about environmental encounters, the game does let you engage with people in the overworld at a certain point. So once you get a certain amount of upgrades, the game is cool, you look stronger. Why don't you go try jumping on that Goomba over there? And you jump on the Goomba in the overworld, and if you manage to jump on it without running into it, you jump on it twice, it's dead. And I'm like, cool, love that. But it's only for very low-level enemies. There are other really cool environmental things. There are paper-mache monsters that are really big, and you have to hit them and maneuver around them and all of this. The environmental fights, very cool. And I like the environmental fights for the lesser enemies as well. I just wish that the majority of the combat ended up being environmental. It was just in the overworld, and then you save the arena fights for more significant encounters, because the boss fights are also usually arena encounters. But it's different because you're not fighting other people on the board. It's just you're making the board to get to the power-ups that you need to properly attack the boss in the right order, because each of them have their own weaknesses and strengths. You can't do some things to others. You can do certain things to different ones. So it's like mentally, it's very, very engaging. And I love that. So the boss fights are great. And even if you threw like a Goomba at me every now and then, because sometimes you'll be like wandering around and you're going to go get something and it'll pop out of the bush and get you. And I'm like, okay, this is a meaningful encounter because it ambushed me and I need to get through here to get that. I'd be fine with having those arena fights. It's just the overworld ones, the ones where they're just hanging out and like if they see you, they'll chase you. I would end up running away from them as often as I could because it was tiresome to enter the arena fight. And honestly, that is my big contention with the game, and it's the one that is enough to call my vote into question. Because I think the game is fantastic, but when the bulk of your gameplay is something that I'm trying to run away from, everything else has to be really fantastic to make me think it's worth it.
Sure.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying the video game part of the video game is
Yeah,
not fun.
and it's been such a struggle for me to like try and articulate well my experience with it, because like I said, the environmental fights, the paper mache monsters, even just like stepping on Goombas, like getting the step correctly and just like killing them in the overworld, and especially the boss fights, I love. I actually think they're very, very good. It's just the cannon fodder enemies that it's too much back to back. And I think there are simple ways they could have fixed it. Make the smaller enemies, like I said, environmental, and then have a few that are like scripted encounters and have those be the arena fights, so they're a big deal. Because there are moments in the game where like regular enemies will show up, but it'll be like an army of them and they'll ambush you and it'll be a wave fight, and those are exciting, those are cool because like they serve a purpose, and like I had no problem with those. Again, it's just the frequency of it. The other way they could have fixed it is either have the enemies have more effect on the board, kind of like how the Koopa Troopas are, where you could use them to clear part of the board. Like, have the enemies affect everything else, as opposed to just being something to hit, like just hammering on. Or make a more interesting weapon system. Because your weapons are the boots and the hammer, and they don't change. So basically you get stuff that is more powerful, or like you get the boots that you use for the spiky enemies, or you have like ones that help you get more coins. Like they have useful effects, but they're not interesting effects.
And also, you lose them. They break after a few uses. So you either have to happen upon another pair of boots, or you have to buy them. Yeah, and that's annoying.
That sounds annoying.
Yeah, that's a little...
I would say I was worried about it at the beginning, but the thing is, I had so much money in this game, and it made sense because when you reach a certain level, there's a point in the game where there's a ton of just like ultra expensive items, and I was like, okay, I get it. And having the money never felt like a detriment. Like I never felt like it was robbing me of an experience. But the good thing was that, yeah, I always, while I did like squeeze the most out of my items, I always had enough, because you can have 4 of each equipped at once, and then you have a backup bank of just like the ones that you're not using as well. So you're never like running out necessarily. You shouldn't be. They break, and so sometimes when they do break in the middle of a fight, so like when my shiny boots broke, then I'd be like, oh no, I can't step on these dudes and they're still alive. What do I do? So then I had to get creative. Like that's when it put me in a pickle, and those were interesting fights. And that's what I mean. Like it's just, you need something to spice things up. And so I guess durability is one way that they did that, because then it would force me to like, there are items in this game, like you get fire flowers and ice flowers and stuff like that. I almost never use them, and then every now and then I'd be like, that's an elemental enemy, or oh god, my boots just broke. I guess I have to resort to this. And that made stuff interesting. I wish there were more ways to spice up the common encounters.
Yeah.
Amanda, how'd you feel about the boss fights?
Oh my gosh, they were I think they're awesome. I think they're very enjoyable. There were plenty of times where I did get a little frustrated, but the thing is, there was never a point where I said, screw this, and I just, like, quit. You know what I mean? It would be like, okay, I'm having a really hard time. I just died again, but I'm going to get it this time. We're going to do it. Let's go. We're going to do it. So, which is very much not me. A lot of the time I need to step away from a game and be like, I'm going to rip this console to pieces. But I don't know, with Paper Mario, I don't know. I just kept feeling like I have to go back. Like, I have to get this done. Especially with some of these bosses, because I'm like, you are too cocky, and I don't like you. I don't like what you did here. And also, some of them are just absolutely brilliant. It took me a second to, like, understand. I'm like, why are you that? And why are you? I don't want to spoil anything, but it's really hard.
There are what bosses are physically, and then there's also their personality.
Yeah.
And so sometimes as you're exploring an area, you're seeing, like, the remnants of the boss's destruction, and you're like, okay, so this, and you're
like, what could this
so
possibly
you figure
be?
out one or the other. You're like, okay, this is your personality, or this is what you are, I think. And then you start trying to piece out the other one, and you're like, wait, why those two? And then it kind of ties together, and you're like, that is so clever.
It's the stupidest thing,
Yes.
and I love it so much.
Yeah, the boss fights are surprisingly challenging. I did not expect the challenge, but also I had, like, a near identical experience to you, where a lot of times, especially in a game like Mario, or I don't know, like a platformer, or even an RPG, where it's that where you're stuck in an area, like, you can't move around, you can't give yourself space, like, it is what it is, and you just have to do it right. When I lose too many times, I just I go, okay, I'm gonna take a break for 30 minutes, and I'll come back, and hopefully I'll be better when I, like, breathe. But this game, no, like, I always, especially in the boss encounters, I was like, no, I want to power through this. And sure enough, I would. Like, sometimes it would maybe take me 2 or 3 tries at certain bosses. And if I did every now and then pull off a boss on the first try, it felt magnificent. Because the game does a clever thing where, because the system is familiar, and this is, again, where it spices things up, which it works great for the bosses. Because the system is familiar, you know how to navigate the rings, but then you don't understand the boss. And so you have to spend a few turns basically getting dunked on by the boss to be like, oh, you do that, but you can't do this. And you figure out the gimmick, and you go, okay, but at that point, you've already taken a lot of damage. So now it's like, okay, I need to arrange the rings so I can pick up health, because if I do this, I'll be able to do damage now. But if I don't heal, then when it's his turn, I'm going to die, and you have to balance it, and I think it's really well done. I do think the boss fights are super, super enjoyable, both mechanically and narratively.
Narratively, they are hysterical.
Oh, yeah. There are some fabulous set pieces. Just the presentation of them. Wow. The only thing I would have wanted more was, one of my, like, surprise favorite games on the Switch is Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And I love how that game does boss fights. Yeah. And so, like, there's one very theatrical boss in this, and I just wanted it to be a little bit more like the Phantom of the Opera. Yeah. Because there's a performance element, and I just wish that there was a voice actor or something, like, to give it the extra spice instead of just the text. Like, I would have loved to hear an actual song to be like, that's a bop, or something like that. But regardless, it was still
great. You want
great.
Sander Cohen's voice actor to be the voice of that?
Let me tell you, there is a boss in this game that is Sander Cohen,
literally,
but Paper Mario.
Oh my god.
Literally, it's so good. It's so good.
And the death for the boss is also amazing. Like, all of them have their little, like, moment, but God, like, yeah.
That one was like, that was top. Like, that was number one boss right there. I kind of felt bad for him. Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah, the game's just oozing with personality.
Yeah. But going off of what you said about, like, wanting to have people actually singing these songs and having voice actors, you know, voice characters, there were just so many. It's weird because of how much music they chose to use. And and every time a song, like, the first time I remember, they were like, oh, here's this song, and they start
oh my god, the song, like, the instrumental is like it's kicking and it's everything.
Yeah.
And then there's no voice. And
there's
I'm like,
no voice, and you're like,
"Oh."
wait, what? And you're like, am I supposed to sing?
Yeah.
Like, and there was a point where I'm like, I'm trying to sing these words to like this tune, and I know it's not
I
the
was
point of
too,
it,
yeah.
but I'm like, I'm a little sad now. I was really looking forward to that.
That's basically how
so
the game
weird.
does
And like,
it. but yeah.
it's still really cute because like the characters are still on screen and they're like, and they dance and it's adorable. It's adorable. But I'm like,
Yes.
wow, imagine how much better it would be if someone was actually singing this song.
Agreed. And I can see reasons why they may have abstained from that. You might feel compelled then to be like, it doesn't make sense if we don't voice all our characters then. And so then you also have to voice Luigi and you have to voice, everyone else who like are traditionally kind of silent. Like if you give them too much voice, it might start getting weird. So I guess I could see the issue. I would have liked to have had it for the boss, like for those special moments.
Yeah.
Especially because they're pretty much always from like new characters. So
Yeah.
it would have been nice, but those are really my two areas. I wish there was a little voice, and I wanted more spice in the actual like primary combat encounters. I realized that TJ made a point earlier about me always describing things I like as food, and I'm saying that I want spice on combat. So here we are. But I mean, other than that, like outside of those areas, I had nothing but positive experiences here. And I don't want to delve too much into the specifics of certain areas, but like this game really, really evokes Zelda vibes for me. And it might just be the fact that it's an RPG, but like there's one area where you're essentially doing the Triforce like trials. Like in earlier Zelda games, you had to go get the 3 orbs before you could get the Triforce and like stuff like that. There's something like that in this game. There's an area of the game that really reminds me of... I never played Wind Waker, but I played Phantom Hourglass. And it reminds me of like the sailing section in that generation of Zelda games. And I love Zelda as a world, and also the games that I have played, I've really enjoyed. And I think that it took a lot of the best pieces of one of Nintendo's best franchises and threw it into this game. I want to see more Paper Mario. I want to see where they take it and maybe refine it. Like, it might be weird to have Paper Mario or have Mario like fighting people out in the open, but like, yeah, maybe like do that more. Like maybe give Mario actual weapons and just let him engage with people in the overworld. If you just did that, it would fix... I would be almost completely satisfied with this game.
Did it make you want to go back and play the older ones?
The older Paper Marios?
Yeah.
Because I haven't really like experienced any of them in their entirety, not necessarily. It did make me want to go back and finish exploring, like collecting all the stuff in this game. And it makes me... I do want more Paper Mario. If that correlates to your question at all. But yeah.
Cool.
How long was the game? How many hours have you played, Amanda?
I don't even know. But the thing is, like, again, like, the world is so... It's endless. So you feel the need to explore. And there's a lot of times I'm like, Amanda, you need to move on. I definitely have like over 12, 15 hours on this game.
Okay.
I want to say.
If I had to guess, I'd say I'm a little over 20.
Oh, okay. That's, pretty long for a Mario game.
Yeah.
I could maybe be bordering on 30. I don't know.
Ooh.
I would think so. It's a lot. There's so much more than you expect. Like,
Damn.
I was not expecting everything that's happening so far. Because you're like, okay, you're on the right path. You're like, okay, now we're going to do this main thing. And then you're like, oh, no. You actually have to do this before you can even, like, get close to touching that. And you're like, what? I'm excited, but, like, why?
My Switch only has the first played 4 days ago, so I can't see how many hours I spent. But yeah, I'm guessing it's somewhere between 20 and 30 right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's also considering, like, we do explore a lot.
Yeah, I did not skimp out on my experience in this game. I tried to keep it moving, but I took my time and I explored everything. I maybe didn't like obsess over the map and be like, I'm missing one more toad. Let me go bang every piece of grass on the map until it pops out. Like, I didn't do that, but I also didn't have to rush my experience at all. I just had to play all day long. So
That could be why the combat felt so repetitive, because it's a pretty long game, and if the combat system isn't that interesting to begin with, it could get to be tedious after a while.
that is also exactly my thought, and I think the fact that I played it in essentially one sitting for the sake of the review. If I played this game very casually, the way that like I used to play games when I was younger, and like I played for a few hours one day and then I didn't touch it for 3-4 days and then picked it up again, I think honestly the combat system would probably be just fine. But if you're like invested in the story, and there is a story to be invested in, and you want to see it and you're like I can't put it down, then it gets a little repetitive when you've spent several hours in the game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, one of the things that I realized was I think that if you gave this game to me as a 9-year-old, I mean maybe I was just a dumb 9-year-old, but I don't think I would be able to finish this game.
No. Okay, so here's the thing. Hear me out, right? So when I played Super Paper Mario and I was a child, right? I don't remember how old I was, and I said this in like my impressions, but as a child, I don't know, in this video game, I did not understand the concept of like that there's depth to things. So like if you are not on the same plane as an object or a character or something, interacting with them is like impossible.
Well, it's especially
right?
hard when you consider paper, because depending on your orientation, you could be very thin, and so it's easy to miss things and think you're on the same plane, but you're not.
Exactly.
RPGs could be brutal, though. Not to have a long sidebar, but Kingdom Hearts, when I played that as a kid, it is a kid's game, but I had a very tough time with that just because JRPGs, they don't mess around.
Yeah.
Right.
The concept of stats and equipment doesn't really register with a child's brain,
Exactly.
I guess.
At all.
That's unless I had an older brother to take care of it for me, which for the record, I still don't have an older brother, and I don't think I'm getting one anytime soon.
You will one day. Don't worry. You will.
I don't.
I'll try hard enough.
There are just sections of the game that I don't think I would be able to finish, just because
No.
some of the boss fights are tough, and I think if you die a certain amount of times, it gives you like an easier mode for certain things or something like that. But just certain concepts, I feel like are subtle enough that I wouldn't be able to grasp. Like there are some things that like Toads will mention kind of in passing that seems obvious to me as an adult who is playing the game and is like, oh, I'm sure this is going to tie in. But if I was just a kid being like, haha, Mario, and I'm like, oh, that's funny, that's cute that the Toad said that, and then later when I'm in the temple, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, because I would not think as a child that something they said 10 minutes ago was something in a completely different area was going to tie into a temple. I don't know.
Right. No, exactly. That's exactly why when I was a child, now I have older siblings. And that's why when I was a kid, more often than not, I would watch my sister play it because I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get past it. So, and it was very frustrating.
Which is, I guess, what makes it weird when, we talk about it as a kid's game. Because it's kind of not.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's why when Benetato said, it's a kid's game.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but it's also like, if I imagine my little brother trying to play this game, I love him to pieces, and he's gotten a lot better at games. Like he's started to get more into them.
Mm-hmm.
But
dunk on him.
I just know that he would probably have some trouble, and he would end up getting really frustrated and just quit because it's kind of a complicated game. It's a little complex.
It's fine. I was just being an asshole. I finished Odyssey.
Yes,
it doesn't matter that it's a kid's game.
That's the point I wanted to make.
I destroyed Odyssey. I didn't just
You
finish
made
it. I
Odyssey.
did everything in Odyssey.
Exactly.
I made
So,
Odyssey what?
I'm not going to say it, but you know what I was going to say.
I created Odyssey. I produced the game and developed it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
But yeah, it exists in a weird place because it's decently challenging, but it's also deceptively cute.
It's so charming. It is such a charming game.
But I don't think anyone who's listening to this and considering the game, I definitely don't think it should be written off as a kid's game. And I think again, not to go back to the narrative, but the story is really touching at points. It's super goofy and inconsequential throughout. But when it gets to the points where it wants to make a point, I think it's actually really lovely, and I'm glad I got to experience it. And the world as a whole, honestly, it's a lovely experience. Just those that big gripe in particular, which I think is the controversy with a lot of the other Paper Mario games as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any questions?
I have one quick question, particularly for TJ. TJ, did you play the older games like Thousand Year Door or any of them?
I did. I've played every Paper Mario game
So,
except this one.
okay, my question is based on what you heard about the combat in this, because everyone's going to compare this game to Thousand Year Door or Paper Mario 64 because that's what everyone loves, right? So is the combat in those games similar to this one, or is it like something completely different?
Nah, it's completely different. They're closer towards general like RPG things. Each game has a different combat system, and they usually do it based on like what they're working on. Like one of them was like theater, so each time you'd battle, that's why Thousand Years Door is great, because like you're in a theater for every battle, and then like they would feed you stars based on what you're doing. It doesn't sound as much fun as Thousand Years Door, but probably more fun than Sticker Star.
Gotcha. Cool.
Like Thousand Year Door is hard to beat. That's probably like the number one Paper Mario game.
Because I've never played any of them. I'm watching, my favorite YouTuber right now is playing through Thousand Year Door, and the combat of that looks like traditional RPG, turn-based RPG. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to get my hands on this one because it sounds
They're all
interesting.
generally like that. I'm surprised they went with this for this game, but it seems interesting.
Cool.
Ready to vote, baby.
All right. In the case of Paper Mario Origami King, Amanda Fernandez Acosta, how do you vote?
Amanda Facasta.
Amanda Facasta, thank you very much. I vote you should totally buy it though. I know it's a little it's we said things and we did things, but you gotta understand, like, it's a Mario game, dude. Like you gotta experience it firsthand. And honestly, overall, I think it's a very creative and charming game, and I don't see why not. You know, I'm having a great time. I'm not even done yet, and I assure you that you most likely 99.7% will also have a great time. So I think you should buy it.
So,
Don't you dare.
no, here's where I'm at. Here's where let me level with you all. I still don't know how I want to vote. No matter how hard I think about it.
Wahoo!
It's like I'm pretty evenly split down the middle. I'm leaning in the direction of buy because it was just such a wonderful experience to have. Like I genuinely loved it, and yeah, it was wonderful. The music's great in areas. I love the bosses.
For an E-rated game.
Yeah, it's just like that. The combat, the fact that I was running away from everything, like really makes me consider whether it's worth the $60.
That's fair. Maybe
Vote your heart.
But if I'm following my heart, like if I'm not trying to be like a game journalist or whatever, if I'm following my heart, then yeah, I vote that you should buy it, because everything else is so phenomenal that it tips the scale in its favor. It's just that one gripe, and I think if you're playing it casually, if you're kind of like taking your time with it, it probably won't bother you as much as it bothered me for playing it, 12, 13 hours a day. So yes, you should buy it.
yay.
Okay. In the case of Paper Mario Origami King, you should buy it though. And now, a word from not our sponsors, but our haven't played it yet co-hosts. I'm curious, where are you guys sitting? Like right now, if you guys had $60 on the line, which way would you go from everything we've said?
No, I wouldn't. I would probably wait for a sale. I would eventually buy it at a cheaper price.
That's my practical advice. I would buy
That's
it at
fair.
$45.
Yeah,
But
I could agree
we
with
don't
that.
vote like that on the show.
Right.
And if you had to decide, I think if you're a fan, like if this is piquing your interest, you'll probably find the world delightful.
Right. But I mean, for a game where the combat is not all that great and that's most of the game,
Yeah.
I'd probably be like, no. I'd go play one of the older ones.
If you told me to be like clinical, I'd say no. But you said follow your heart, so I followed my heart.
And you should follow your heart.
Nah.
Well, I already spent $60
True.
on it, but if I didn't, I would still get it, because Paper Mario's known to. it's based on the world and like the fun all around it. It's also an E-rated game, so I'm not expecting the most out of the combat system. I'm surprised again that they changed it. I'm interested to actually experience it. But yeah, I mean, $60 is still steep for a Nintendo game in general, especially a Mario game.
But isn't it always? Yeah, but overall, again, it's a lovely experience. I would pay $30 for a game set in the coffee shop alone.
Wow.
I loved the little coffee shop bits. I loved all the bosses. Yeah, I'd pay $30 for the coffee shops and $30 for all the bosses. So that's your 60. Buy it. Go buy it.
There you go.
Get the game. Play Thousand Year Door first, though.
But yeah, that's our discussion on Paper Mario. If you're not aware, we also released an episode on Ghost of Tsushima today, which has an excellent combat system. So if you're interested on seeing two dichotomies of very, very different games, go check that out. Other than that, that's been our review. Thank you for hanging out. Woohoo!
We'll go see you in the other podcast.
Goodbye. Wahoo!
Goodbye.
Doesn't he like at the end of his game go like, "Thank you so much for playing my game" or something? I think he does. Oh, he doesn't talk in this one. Right? Like they don't have their voice anymore.
Yoshi dies.
Yoshi dies.
They put Yoshi in a shredder in Mario Bros.
Okay, now.